Hi everyone. I just thought I'd make a video because I know if I say what I want to say in text, it will be very long and boring and probably none of you will read it. I just want to really wish you all a happy new year and hope you're all well back from your holidays, and thank you for the amazing work you do for Bodhicitta Foundation, for the many children we're helping, for the women. We're helping 2,000 people a year directly or indirectly. And I am very grateful for your friendship and your support and the efforts that you make to assist our charity in India. There's just a few things I want to clarify around the way I see things and the way people who are not Buddhists see things, that sometimes creates confusion for people coming to Bodhicitta Foundation, people who aren't Buddhist. Someone mentioned to me today that maybe I should just accept that my dream of having a monastery will never happen, and that they're not interested in that project and they're not likely to visit because they have family commitments in the city. And that's fine. That's why I've made Bodhicitta Foundation separate to Kalyana Mitra Fund, because I understand that not everyone is interested in the monastery. In fact, most people. But being a Buddhist nun is my job. I don't have any other form of support. We follow something called the Vinaya, the Code of Ethics for monastics, which prevent us from holding a normal job, from growing our hair, or wearing normal lay people's clothes. The purpose of a monastic's life is contemplative realization and the service of society, in the form of pastoral care, Buddhist teachings, visiting schools, teaching meditation, prisons, helping people no one else has time to help. And this is usually, more like a priest. It's not financially compensated by the Buddhist community, which is quite weak in Australia. And what happens in Australia is each ethnic Buddhist community only supports monks and nuns from their own ethnic Buddhist community. So Cambodians support Cambodian monks, Sri Lankans support Sri Lankan monks, or Theravadins support Theravadins, but not people in my tradition. So because I have these vows, the way the Buddhist tradition works is that when I help people, when I listen to their problems, when I offer them spiritual solace, when I do pastoral care, social work, the people who follow me donate for that. And it's a 2,600-year-old tradition that everybody who is around a Buddhist nun or a monk would support them financially and emotionally, and that's their family, that's their community. So it's a little bit more than the structure of a secular charity that we have in the West. So if I don't have people who support me, and the traditional form of support is robes, food, shelter, medicine, I will end up homeless. I will end up starving. And I can tell you that I've already been homeless 3 times in the last 19 years. This time last year, I was sleeping in my car, and that my mother's house is not a suitable place for a Buddhist nun to thrive. She really just let me in as a favor. A few years back, she didn't intend for me to live there for a really long time. And it's not entitled or unspiritual or inappropriate for a Buddhist nun to ask people who don't understand the concept of reciprocity, or make them aware of how she survives, how she lives. And, our domain name is Bodhicitta-Vihara. Vihara means temple. So Bodhicitta has never really been a secular charity, although we do perform the work of secular charities as well as being a Buddhist center in India. We are a Buddhist center in India. We do have nuns and monks. It is in our constitution to support Western monastics in Australia and to form a monastery, although I have since separated the monastery because I know that most people who want to support India don't want to support the monastery. But if I don't get the support I need, and I tell you I'm struggling and I'm not doing well and I'm not making minimum wage and I can't pay my rent and I don't want to end up homeless and getting raped, I've already been there. I don't want to be there again. When I was a teenager, I was a street kid. And I don't think that it's unreasonable that after 20 years as a Buddhist nun, I can survive and not be homeless when I do actually give labor that is valuable to the Buddhist community. You know, and if you're someone who says, yeah, we only want to support the Indian charity, fair enough. But just understand that if I don't have a place to live, if I don't have any money to live on, I can't run the charity in India. And I've only been able to run the charity in India because I slept on my mother's couch. And because I made a lot of personal sacrifices, you know, and if I can't survive, I can't continue to run the charity and I can't continue to stay ordained as a Buddhist nun. There's really no point in being a Buddhist nun if you're working 40 hours a week in a layperson's job. There's nothing wrong with being a layperson. It's just, you know, a different way of life than the one I want to live. I've really given my whole life, my youth, everything to the Buddhist community. And I'm very sad that it's reached this point. And if you're saying that you don't value me having a home or enough support to live a dignified life, fair enough. But please be aware that you're basically saying, we don't value your labor. We don't value what you do. We don't value what you've given us. We don't understand the way you're living. You know, and I'm not saying you need to give more than you can give, because you're already giving a great deal to the people on my committee, and I'm very grateful for everything that you've given. But this is the way it is. If I don't have support, I can't do this work. Bodhicitta Foundation India has only worked because I didn't have a job or a mortgage. If I had a family, a job and a mortgage, there's no way I could have given up 10 years of my life to live in an Indian slum for no pay. Yeah? So if there is no reciprocity, if there is no sense of community, if there's no sense of valuing what I have to offer, I can't continue in this life. And it will impact the work we do in India as well. It will impact those 2,000 people we're helping in India as well. You know, so when I say we need a monastery, I also mean I need a place to live and not be homeless. I need some financial security. And I don't think it's unspiritual or entitled of me to ask for that. So I hope you understand, you know, I can understand from the point of view of lay people who've joined a committee who are not Buddhist, who are wondering, why is this nun asking us to visit her meditation center? Why does she always talk about building spiritual community? That's not something we're interested in. We joined to help Indian slum children. That's fine. I understand that. And that's why I've separated the two charities. But if I don't have people who want to build spiritual community and friendship and support my life as a nun, my contemplative practice, I need my contemplative practice to do the work I do in an Indian slum. I can't just be selfless all the time and have no peace. You know, if I have no peace, I won't be able to emotionally continue to do the work I do in India. So one supports the other. No peace, no social work. No social work, no peace. And I'm really sad that, you know, it's arrived at this point where all of the people I ordain with have disrobed, and there is not one monastery or center in Australia that doesn't charge monastics in my tradition. So it is a Buddhist tradition to support monks and nuns. If you don't feel inspired to do it, I understand, because many of you are already supporting the charity in India, and you've got to choose your issues. But, you know, all it would really take is about 30 people to offer $100 a month to support this monastery. There's 500,000 or more Buddhists in Australia, and there are really very few monasteries for English-speaking monastics, and people who actually give their time and invest in building spiritual community and teaching Buddhism in a way that isn't completely commodified, you know, like $1,000 for a mindfulness work, you know. And it is quite a common thing for women's labor to not be valued, you know, the work that we do, which is unpaid, you know, the emotional labor that we do, which is unpaid, the cleaning, the cooking, the holding space for community, the listening to people's problems. And for a Buddhist monk or a nun, it's more than that. It's teaching in places where people have no money to pay a meditation teacher, like prisons, drug and alcohol rehab centers, schools. You know, the numerous people who'll turn up on my door needing counseling, you know, and later on those people will not make a donation. You know, they'll say, why do you expect something for nothing? But those very people were the ones who used my labor. So I could only achieve the things I've achieved in India because I sacrificed my youth, my career, financial security, because I wasn't paying rent, I had nowhere to live, you know, but I neglected my own well-being and my life was out of balance. And I'm very grateful that I've been able to stay and rent a house in the Blue Mountains, and, you know, spend some time focusing on my own meditation and recovering from 10 years in an Indian slum. But it is unfair to expect monastics to endlessly give and not reciprocate. And for me, now this talk has become about more than just the committee of Bodhicitta Foundation, because all of you are giving, and I appreciate that, and I understand that you may not be interested in the monastery project. But for the people who say they have, you know, who have asked me to come and teach, and then years later see that I'm sleeping in my car and do nothing about it, you know, it makes me sad. It makes me sad that it's come to this point where I'm struggling, and people don't get why it's important that I don't have to sleep on the street, that I just the idea that I can continue to run this charity and have nowhere to live in Australia, because in India there is no certainty about my visa. You know, I can be thrown out any time. So I love that work. But it's emotionally draining, and there is no guarantee that I can stay in India full time in the future, because I've already lost my visa once, you know, and had nowhere to stay. So this is the Buddhist tradition of supporting monastics. This is why it's important to me. It's not just an issue of oh, can't you just accept that there is no support? For me, it's an issue of gender equality. It's an issue of building community. It's an issue of valuing women's labor. It's an issue of me not being homeless, and my own personal survival as well. And for me, it's also about, you know, preserving this contemplative tradition. And if you don't value it, fair enough, but just be frank about that, you know, that we don't really care if you don't have a place to live or anything to eat, you know. And I don't think that's the case, but maybe you just don't understand why I'm asking for this. So thank you, and all the best. And if you want to chat about this, maybe message me privately. Thank you.